Rob, what is our second main topic today?
Well, this comes to us from Finn Arturo, who says, "Good morning, movie crew. Devastated. I am devastated. I just read that FX has canceled Y: The Last Man on Hulu before the first season is even finished airing. I understand that maybe the ratings haven't been great, but why not wait until the season is done to give it a fair evaluation? This is one of the most unique shows out there right now. Why do you think they did this?" Well, I would say to Finn, the ratings it's academic. I mean, how many people are watching the show? And I agree with you. I think that, at least give, it's kind of like what happened to Swamp Thing,
Yeah, but Swamp Thing, they literally canceled after the first episode.
Yeah,
one episode.
That was very odd. But, if no one's watching the show, and I have to say, I found the show, I watched the first couple episodes, it was disappointing to me because I really loved the graphic novel. I read the whole thing, and it kind of bummed me out. And Variety says, "Y: The Last Man has been canceled by FX weeks before its first season debuts its final episode. The news was shared by showrunner Eliza Clark through her Twitter on Sunday. Clark thanks FX and the show's creative team for their partnership on the project. She also expresses hope that Y: The Last Man will be able to continue its run at a different network. We've learned that we will not be moving forward with FX on Hulu for season 2 of Y: The Last Man. I have never in my life been more committed to a story, and there is so much more left to tell, except on Hulu, where it's not going to be showing." So John, I don't know why I kind of like the pilot, the first episode, and it just isn't clicking, and I really can't put my finger on why I feel that way. What did you think? Did you check out the show?
I did. I watched the first 4 episodes, and I think the way you described it is completely accurate. It just didn't click. And by the way, it should be mentioned too, they did a terrible job raising awareness of this show, because I remember when it launched, I have been keeping my eye on it, and the week it was coming out, I was like, oh wait, what? It's coming out this week? Like, they did such a bad job of raising awareness for the show at all, raising awareness for the graphic novel. They didn't at all, Rob, in their marketing for this, they didn't at all lean into from the celebrated graphic novel that's about this. They should have been pumping that and talking about it. But that aside, Rob, we often talk about the fact that sometimes, maybe even oftentimes, adaptation is much more difficult to do than original, because you're taking an existing property, which means it comes with a certain set of expectations. It comes with some audience familiarity. It comes with some rules that you're going to have to follow doing an adaptation. Whereas with an original script, you can just do whatever you want. Whatever works, you can make that happen. And sometimes doing an adaptation can be tricky and difficult. And just because something works on a printed page doesn't mean it's going to work on the screen. And as I was watching Y: The Last Man, I was just, I'm with you. I thought the pilot was interesting, the way they did the pilot. But once they moved beyond that, I never got any sense that this was a world that was evolving. I never got, again, it's difficult. Like we talked with Snake Eyes, it's difficult to like a show when you don't like its antagonist. And what's the main character's name? Yorick? Is that Yorick?
Yorick. Yep.
Yorick was an asshole in the show. It's just not likable at all. Diane Lane was fantastic as his mother. Oh, she's so good in this. But it just never clicked. So for me, Rob, it's a combination of the fact that, number one, they didn't raise awareness for it. So no, I don't think a lot of people even knew what this show was or that it was even there. Number two, it's a tricky graphic novel to translate onto the screen and make it really engaging. So I think the people that did watch it, like myself and you, weren't falling in love with it. Some people were. Obviously, the person who wrote in really loved it, and I'm sure there are others who did. But for a lot of us, it just didn't really quite click. And so it's a combination of things. Now, as for why did they cancel it now before letting it finish out its run? I think there's another way of looking at it. I think there was enough episodes aired that FX and Hulu were able to look at it and say, this isn't working.
Right.
And we don't see the numbers increasing. We're not seeing a lot of social media engagement. We don't hear a lot of buzz. Okay, we know we're not going to do a second season. I think it then becomes courteous, Rob, for them to let the showrunner know as soon as possible. Like, why, Why leave her hanging, not knowing if she's going to get a second season or not when you've already made your decision? And so I think, was probably more courtesy than anything else to let her know, look, we don't think this is working. We're not going to renew for a second season. And by the way, we're going to let you know now. So if you guys do want to try to shop this around to another network, we want to give you as much head start as possible. Because they could have waited, Rob, until the season ended and then say, by the way, we decided 3 months ago to cancel your show. And it's like, well, that's 3 months that we could have used shopping for another network. And so I actually think it's a pretty good thing that they did that. Nothing explains that Swamp Thing situation. I'll never understand the Swamp Thing.
Neither.
Like, canceled it after one episode. I'll never get that. But I see it more of a courtesy thing, right? How do you see that? The fact that they announced it now?
I think that they knew they were going to do it. So why not, pull the Band-Aid off now as opposed to later? I think now the entertainment landscape is such that, they know they have the returns. They know if people are watching things. I mean, look at the opposite end of the spectrum with Squid Game. It was announced that that's worth almost $900 million to Netflix because of how many people are watching it. And they only spent like $21 million to acquire it. I mean, that's just monstrously huge for them. And they know, I mean, with the analytics, they know immediately. And I agree with something you said earlier. This film or the series, this was a series I was really interested in seeing. And because they've been trying to make this for years. And I remember seeing the first promo for it. And I'm like, I totally forgot this was even being made.
Yep.
And when the first trailer was really good. And I'm like, when is this going to be on? I had to like look up, where's it airing?
Yep.
Who's putting it out? And I feel that way. It's one of those series that even when I watched the first episode, I had to remind myself that it was even on, like for the second episode, whereas something like Squid Game, I can't wait to get to. I mean, obviously I'm binging that, but you're like, wait, I didn't even know this was on. And even after I started watching it, I had to remind myself that it was on.
Yeah. And it's a shame because so many of us have been waiting for so long. Remember, it was 10 years ago when I can't remember that it was the director from Eagle Eye. I can't remember his name, but he was supposed to direct it, and Shia LaBeouf was going to star as Yurik in it, and they were going to do a big feature film. And a lot of us have been waiting for this, and then it finally got onto the screen. A little bit of a fizzle. Anyway.
A little bit.
Yeah. Guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? From the numbers, I'm going to guess a lot of you weren't even watching Y: The Last Man. Anyway, if you were, did you enjoy the show? Are you surprised it's getting canceled? What do you think about them announcing the cancellation even before the first season is done filming? Whatever you guys are feeling about this, jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts.